I'm Rachel of The Crafted Life, and I'm adding color to my home one project at a time. Now, if you love all things colorful and handmade, then definitely be sure to like and subscribe, stay around for a while because there's a lot of fun projects that I have in the works for this year ahead. Today's project, I'm talking about my Ikea desk, which I made and that you can kind of see behind me. I actually started working on this project last summer when I was working on the hutch makeover that I shared because of life and production issues and just waiting on items to come in. It's taken me a little longer to finish the desk. So this is just your friendly reminder that not everything you see on the internet is finished within a day. I know it feels that way sometimes and that we have to finish our homes and do all this stuff in an instant, but you can take 8 months like I did and you'll still come out with something that's pretty neat. So here's how I painted Ikea furniture, what not to do, and how to take a few basic pieces and turn it into a custom desk fit for your space. I headed to Ikea and Home Depot to get all of the supplies. Everything I used is linked in my blog post, which I'll leave below. Once I got everything home and unpacked, it was time to sand. Because Ikea furniture has a coating on it, you don't need to sand a lot, just enough to scuff up the surface so that the paint sticks better. Bin primer is an absolute must for painting Ikea furniture, otherwise your paint won't stick. I applied 1 coat and then let dry overnight. The next day, it was time for color. I used Deep River by Behr, which is a bold yet vibrant shade of blue. I've really been crushing on blues lately, and this shade might just be my favorite. I only grabbed a quart, and it was more than enough paint to paint the entire unit. I rolled on a coat, but as you can see here, it just wasn't enough for full coverage. You can see that there's some white showing through, you could see the brush strokes, it just wasn't enough. So I went back in with a second coat, let that dry, and then finished with some light touch-ups after that. I also did a test of what the durability of the paint is without the primer, and it's nothing. You absolutely need to prime this project if you want your paint to stick. After letting the paint dry, I went back and sealed everything with a coat of polyacrylic. This is a surefire way to make sure that your paint will last for years to come. And then it was on to the legs. So I used a color swatch of my paint to sort of pick out my spray paint colors. I ended up going with our wedding colors. Those are typically my default colors anyway. But the project is very similar. You start by scuffing up your project so that the paint sticks better. And then you prime. I primed with a priming spray. And I just made sure that all of the legs were spaced out before I started painting. You don't need to paint the tops of your legs because the base of the unit will rest on top. But yeah, you just spray paint the legs. It's very straightforward. And then seal with a coat of varnish spray at the end. Fast forwarding a few months down the road, all the rest of the pieces came in with supply chain issues and I was able to finish my desk. So I sanded the wood top with 80 and 120 grit sandpaper. I dusted everything off and then it was time to prime again. So I used the bin primer just like I did before and you can see that it has aged since I last used it, but stirring it up, everything was back to normal. It just needed a quick little stir to get back to what it was. Now, you don't have to prime your wooden surface, but it does help protect the wood and it will help your paint last and stretch a little bit further. I applied 1 coat to the top of my wooden desk, and while that was drying, I primed the back of the Ikea doors for the front of the cabinet. After letting everything dry, I noticed that the wooden top was rough to the touch, even though it wasn't rough when I went to paint. So I just went in with 150 grit sandpaper to smooth everything out. It might be extra work, but having that smooth surface is going to help you clean the desk later on. After that was all done and sanded, it was time to paint with my actual color, which was white. Not very different from the primer, but you can see the difference between the primed surface and the painted surface. But I let that dry, sealed it with polyacrylic, and then moved on to the doors. Basically, this project is a lot of the same. You're prepping surfaces, you're sanding, you're waiting for paint to dry, and you're taking a lot of showers because you're covered in dust. But one tip I can give you if you get the same doors as me is that you want to hold your paintbrush at an angle to get into the grooves, otherwise the paint will not get in there. So paint at an angle and then go over everything at the end. After I went back in and did a second coat and then sealed with polyacrylic, that was the end of the painting portion of this project. So I got Ryan to assemble the pieces for me because I hate assembly, but I put my 2 units 24.5 inches apart, and then they will also be about 5 inches away from the wall. It really just depends on your units, but I kept a gap to store all of my photo backdrops behind the desk itself. When my units were in place, I laid the wood across the top, and as you can see, there is a raw edge to the piece, so I wanted to cover that up by using iron-on veneer edging. So you'll get the roll of the veneer, and on the back there's like a glue, like an iron-on glue that you will use, but grab parchment paper as well. This will keep it from burning. It's just, you know, protect your surfaces, but apply to your desk, hold the parchment paper on top, and then go over the surface with an iron. I had a mini iron. It's the cutest little iron that I own, but you can use a full-size iron as well. Make your way down the entire desktop, working in small sections, and then when you get to the ends, just trim with scissors. And here is my final desk. It is great because it fits the space perfectly. There's enough room on top to work and to craft, and there's also storage where I can keep all of my supplies hidden. I'll be doing a post on these labels later this week, so stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for watching. I wrote an even more detailed description on my blog, but if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below.